All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Jason Brooks, and I serve as the director for the Governor's School for the Arts. It is a pleasure to welcome you all here for our graphic design art form webinar. And as I'm introducing myself, I want to go ahead and introduce my good friend, Hans Schellhas, who is our artistic consultant for the graphic design program, which is brand new here at GSA. I will allow Hans to kind of introduce himself here in just a few minutes, but let me go ahead and say a few things and then I'll drop the mic and pass it on to you for introduction. Like I said, I'm Jason Brooks. I've been with the Governor's School for the Arts for 2 years now, and I have loved every last bit of it. My background is in music. Performance and education. I am a brass player by heart and a saxophone player by night, is what I like to kind of think of it. And I've done everything from higher education to the arts as a profession. Hans?
Hi, I'm Hans Schellhas and kind of new to GSA here, but extremely excited. Um, so we will be kicking off the first ever GSA graphic design program, which I've been fortunate to be part of. Um, my regular job is as a associate professor at Northern Kentucky University. So I've taught graphic design there. I'm in my 18th year. So it's been a joy to collaborate with GSA, and we've put a program together. So looking forward to hearing any questions you might have as far as that goes.
Amazing, amazing. We are so glad to have Hans on the team with us. Well, while we are currently waiting for a few more folks to come in, go ahead and put in the chat where you're from and whether or not you can see the presentation on your screen. Let's see who's in the chat real quick, where you're from and whether or not you can see the presentation. And we'll give you just a few seconds. All right, we have somebody from Hardin County and they can see the presentation. Amazing, amazing, amazing. We may have a few others coming in as well. Louisville. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. Well, it looks like the presentation is working, which means, oh, and we have somebody from Greenville. Greenville, Kentucky. So welcome, welcome. Thank you for showing up to this graphic design webinar. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to provide you all with some general information about the Governor's School for the Arts. This is not a full GSA 101 like we would have. The next GSA 101 webinar, which gives you everything about the program, the summer, the alumni benefits, um, will be on November the 10th at 5 o'clock. You can go onto our website at KentuckyGSA.org and register for that if you have not gone to that. You don't have to attend a GSA 101 to do the application or to attend, but it is highly advised that you check out that GSA 101. Um, so you're able to get a greater sense of what's going on throughout the summer and throughout this whole process. So this graphic design, artistic webinar, specific webinar is geared just towards the applicant guide. So we'll give you a little bit of the 101, but we're going to mostly talk about what's in the applicant guide for graphic design. Hans, you about ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's roll. So, like I said, I'm the director for the Governor's School for the Arts, and this is what I call the dream team. These are the folks that make everything happen. This is Jessica Graham, who is our program manager, Natalie Isert, who is our program coordinator, and then Samantha Wren Durstock, who serves as our alumni coordinator. These three wonderful ladies are a godsend, and they do everything to make the wheels work here at the Governor's School for the Arts. If you have an email, or a voicemail, or like you called and left a voicemail, 9 out of 10, you're probably talking to Natalie and you're getting a response back. So you are talking to a real person. It is not AI and it's not a robot by any means. You are talking to real people. And so, just a quick overview, what is GSA? GSA is really a community of artists empowering Kentucky's next generation of creative leaders. It is a 3 week, 21-day intensive conservatory style training. It is fun, but it is rigorous. And so, if you really think of 21 days, we've actually calculated how many hours of instructional time happens within, technically, it's 19 days. We don't count the opening day and we don't count the final day of graduation. But that 19 middle day period, 123 hours of instruction in creating art with other like-minded artists and folks who want to be in community making art. And you really can't get that anywhere else in the state. So that's what makes our program one of a kind. This year, we will have 10 different art forms to offer. And after 18 years of having just 9 art forms, we are introducing, ta-da, graphic design. So we are super excited about bringing graphic design into our artistic portfolio to where we're able to kind of extend more of a direction towards those students who really want to get into kind of the more graphic design than architecture or more graphic design than the visual art of clay and painting and stuff to that effect. But you're really more focused on the aspects of graphic design in and of itself. So now I'm going to actually switch past a few of these slides so we can get to a little bit of the meat. So as we are talking about the applicant guide for the Governor's School for the Arts, and especially for this graphic design, we want you to visit KentuckyGSA.org. Go there, and it will have everything that you need for graphic design and for the other 9 art forms. We will say this 101 times throughout this whole webinar. We want you to read the applicant guide. Hans has done a phenomenal job piecing together this applicant guide, and we're going to go through it piece by piece. But if there's additional questions, read the applicant guide even after this webinar. It will help answer probably 99, if not 100% of everything that you'll need to know while you are submitting your application. Please remember, GSA does not require a GPA, an ACT, or an ACT for you to apply. That is the biggest difference between us and GSE and GSP, our sister organizations. Especially within this process, we have what we call a $35 application fee. If you're applying for one art form, great, that's $35. If you're wanting to apply for graphic design and visual art, or graphic design and architecture, that will be an additional $15. But please be mindful. If finances are not necessarily great within your wheelhouse, don't worry about the financial burden of it all. There is a box, especially if you are on free or reduced lunch, or if your school is Title I and is getting free lunch overall, just click on the small box at the end of the application that says, I am a student of free and reduced lunch. No questions asked. You click it, the application fees are waived. We're asking for those. If money is kind of hard to come by, that $35 and that additional 15, don't worry about it. Put the box, keep going, and we'll just we'll keep it working. This is really more on the honor system. We honor all of our young artists, and we don't want any type of barrier to come into play with any of you. So. All right. So during this applicant guide, we're going to talk about 2 processes. Process one or round one, which is the virtual, and then or the primary the preliminary round. And then if you get past the preliminary round, you'll go into the second and final round auditions and reviews. So there's going to be 2 sections that we're really going to concentrate on throughout this whole process. So, as you all know, the applications are already open. They opened on October the 10th, and they will close January 18th at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. That means 10:59 Central Standard Time, since Kentucky is in 2 different time zones. As well, once you start to open up your application, it's going to take you to a website called Accepted, ACCEPTD. The E is not included in that in that word. It's intentional. So please go to that particular website. There's a link in the applicant guide. You'll be able to click on it and go straight to it. All right, I will get to these other components as we start to kind of talk about the applicant guide itself. And so, real quick, this upcoming summer, we will have one unified session, which means that we will have a more condensed, more intimate gathering as young artists throughout the whole state at Northern Kentucky University. We will be there from June 7th, which is a Sunday, to June 27th, which is a Saturday. So please mark your calendars now, and be ready to move in on opening day and ready to take the world on the 27th. All right. And if you are still needing additional information, we have two more opportunities for you to learn about GSA with those other slides that I actually kind of skipped through. You can come check us out on Monday, November the 10th at 5 o'clock p.m. and Wednesday, December the 3rd at 5 o'clock p.m. Those are our last two GSA webinars, which will go more into detail about the day in and day outs of the program, what you're doing, how you're going about it, and all of the fun additional stuff that kind of goes along with it. So, all right. Please remember throughout this whole process to share questions. We will answer questions in real time. You can put them in the Q&A box or you can put them in the chat. Either way, I will be answering some questions and so will Hans throughout this whole process. And so now I will now bring up our applicant guide. And I will zoom in just a little bit on it. So when you go to KentuckyGSA.org, you want to go and find application and applicant guides. You have to scroll down just a little bit on the front page and then look for graphic design, click on it, and then you should see this right there on your screen. All right, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. You'll then come into what we call the table of contents, which will outline everything that is going to be within the applicant guide in and of itself. This will provide you with not only the program description, and I won't read it because I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but daily studio sessions are completed by critiques, guest artists, workshops, and lectures exploring contemporary design practices. Like you're getting the top of the line education within a 19-day period from some of the best graphic designers here within Kentucky and surrounding areas. And so here's what we're all here for. Let's talk a little bit about round one, preliminary rounds. So after January the 18th, within a few days, the GSA administration team, myself, Jessica, Natalie, and Ren, we will take all of the applications that come in, and then we will send them directly to our adjudicators to start looking at your application. They will take everything on this preliminary round into consideration. Two recommendation forms, a personal short essay, a personal question video, an art form specific question, portfolio images, portfolio cover sheet, and then the sketchbook images as well. So we'll go through each particular piece. We won't read every word, but we'll at least give you enough information to let you know exactly what to do. So let's talk about the two recommendation forms. One thing that we get every year at GSA is that, hey, one of my recommendation forms came in, but my second person did not submit their recommendation form. Guess what? Not getting two recommendation forms does not take you out of the running. But please know that our adjudicators who are looking at your recommendation forms do read them, right? We want you to identify two people who will complete the recommendation form in support of your GSA application. Each person will complete the same form separately. They are anonymous, so you won't be able to access the recommendation forms. It comes directly to GSA admin and then directly to your adjudicators. In the recommendation forms itself, what you'll do is that you'll open up the application, and then you'll put in your recommenders' email addresses. Please make sure that those email addresses of your recommenders are correct. There has been many of times where our young artists have put in email addresses quickly and then realize 6 weeks later that the recommender never got the actual email. So please make sure that you are being vigilant and making sure that you're entering in the email correctly. So let's go to just a little bit more information about your recommender form. Please tell your recommender to check their email. And also let them know that you're putting them down as a recommender. You'd be surprised on how many folks automatically put their private teacher or another person that's able to speak to not only their playing ability, their artistic ability, or even just their character, right? It doesn't have to be a school official or a band teacher or a visual art teacher or anything to that effect. But we want somebody who's able to speak to you and your character and able to fill out those recommender forms as best as possible. Please let your recommenders know to check their email because it's going to come from do/not reply@getaccepted.com. So it may be in their junk mail. It may be in an other folder that they have to filter, but please let them know that once you put their names in and submit, that they're going to get an email from Jotform. And it's going to say documentation request from your name for Kentucky's Governor's School for the Arts. Ask them to confirm with you when they have submitted the form. So stay on top of them. Sometimes us as educators, we get overwhelmed with so many things. Just stay on them and let them know, hey, did you get to my recommendation letter yet? Guess what? It's in their email. They'll get to it. Promise you. All right. So all letters of recommendation will come through email and they don't have to submit anything physically. Let's see what else. We'll go down to the personal essay. I'm checking the chat to make sure we don't have any additional folks out and about. Okay. So the personal essay, 250 words max. Because our adjudicators are looking at about 1,300 plus applications, we're asking everyone to kind of stick to that 250 word max. But within your personal short essay, we're going to ask you the question, how can/why should the art form you are applying in be of importance to your community or society as a whole? Guess what? There is no wrong or right answer. What our adjudicators are looking for is your authentic self. We want you to be open. We need you to be honest in your responses. So please do not go on to a chat GPT or any other AI thing. We want to hear directly from your heart about what's happening and what your particular perspective is on how your art form is important to your community or society as a whole. If that makes sense, let me know. All right. When uploading your personal essay, title and file, personal short essay. Everything you need to know about it is right here. And then in addition, we have a personal question video, 90 seconds max. So within your personal question video, it's going to ask you, and these questions that we have here on the applicant guide are the exact same questions in the application. So there's no, hidden questions or anything. It's all right here. Why is the art form you are applying in important to you? What are your goals for yourself as an artist in this particular art form? Once again, they want to hear from you. Be honest, be open, be authentic in your response. They want to learn who they may be accepted into the first class of graphic design for the Governor's School for the Arts, right? They want to be able to put together the strongest, but also a great experience for all parties involved, right? Who are passionate about the art form of graphic design. It's going to say begin your video by stating, hello, my name is Jason Brooks, and then record your answer in an interior space. So do it inside that is free from interruptions and noise. Do not edit or splice the video. Our adjudicators will be able to know. We want you to do it in one particular take. Now, if you feel like, hey, I didn't like that take, scrap it, do another take. But please do not edit or splice the video that you plan on submitting. You do not need to include an introductory frame or any other effects such as fades. Just let it be as simple and easy as possible. Hit record. Hi, my name is Jason Brooks. I'm applying for the Governor's School for the Arts Graphic Design, and then talk about the prompt question that they're asking for. Hopefully that makes sense. And then there will be art form specific questions that come up. These particular questions, they'll ask these questions about your specific interest in the art form and their level of access to training, classes, and lessons. They want to know what particular skill that you've already gotten in this particular art form prior. This does not disqualify you if you don't have any graphic design um, experience prior to the program, right? We have students from all over the 120 counties of Kentucky with different skill sets and levels. They're not, our adjudicators are not just looking for the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, but they're looking for students that have that potential, that grit, and that willingness to be pliable, teachable, and want to learn as well. And so there are going to be a few questions that they're going to ask just about your experience around graphic design or around the arts in general. So be open, be authentic and real within those questions that they're going to end up asking you on the actual art form specific questions. And now we get to what I would consider the meat of the preliminary round in and of itself. And so I will actually stop talking for a hot second and pass the mic on to my friend Hans to kind of walk us through slowly on the portfolio images and files and what's required on the upload for these particular pieces.
Okay, great. So essentially, you're submitting 8 portfolio pieces. Two of those portfolio pieces will be drawings. So you can, out of the 8, you can include more drawings, such as if that is a big part of your artistic portfolio. Um, like it says under 6 remaining portfolio pieces. Um, it you could your portfolio could be made up of all fine artworks. Perhaps you have a little bit of graphic design experience and you have 1 or 2 pieces, but um, we know that in high school, not a lot of students will be exposed to graphic design. You may have taken in some art classes and you may have created some art pieces, and that's totally fine because we're using a lot of the same design principles, and drawing is a pretty typical skill that students will have. So out of the 8, 2 must be drawings. Um, your other pieces could include fine artworks, like drawings, paintings, photographs, three-dimensional works, such as ceramics or sculpture, collages, animations, short films. It could be a number of different things. I think we're just looking for pieces that demonstrate your craftsmanship, your voice, um, etc. Um, However, if you do have pieces that include graphic design, there are some examples of those in this list. So, for example, it could be a poster that you've designed, could be a logo, um, website, motion graphics, etc. So it's not limited to all to those things. There could be additional things, but those are typical examples that would be in a fine art portfolio or graphic design portfolio. When we're looking at graphic design pieces, sometimes we do exercises that are really just completely skill based. You might be learning, let's say, Adobe Illustrator and learning how to use the pen tool for the first time. And you might be doing just a completely technical exercise where you might be tracing something. That's totally fine. However, we would encourage you to not put those pieces in because those are just technical exercises, right? Like if you're just copying something. What we're looking for is something that would require you to actually design something or create something. It could be like a logo, it could be a poster for something. Those are different because you are um, you're applying art skills, you're applying design principles, And so that's different than maybe a purely technical exercise that might be copying something in order to learn control of the tool. So hopefully that makes sense when you go to that section. But again, don't feel pressured that your work has to be graphic design oriented. We totally understand that that might not be the case. Um, let's see. So, under important note, we are in the age of AI. And I think we are all just really grappling with how things are moving so fast and what people do with AI just grows every day. And so, kind of at this place in time, um, how I think we don't want to ignore AI as a potential tool, and we see AI as a tool like anything else, whether it's like the Adobe programs, whether it's a pen, whether it's a paintbrush, it's a tool. And so if folks use that tool, I think we're trying to just give a few tips, a few guidelines on what you might avoid. So if you create an image straight out of AI, you know, the capabilities are really strong that it will look refined in some way, it will look highly finished, but it can also be very cliche. It can be very typical. It might not require much skill to do that. So we would encourage you that if you are using AI for a project, perhaps that AI image is more of a raw image. Perhaps you're manipulating it in some way, or perhaps you're incorporating it into something where we're seeing maybe some kind of hybrid experience, perhaps, um, where maybe you're using it in an illustration, or maybe you are compositing it with something, or but if we're seeing you push back, maybe in some way past just like, hey, I put in a prompt, it came out with this typical thing, it looks refined. I don't know. We can all get kind of a lot of typical things like that. So those would be ways where you're demonstrating some way and you're pushing your AI use a little further. I don't know how many folks will use AI, but if you do, there's also a limitation of only two AI pieces in the portfolio. Um, and then there are just some instructions in terms of digitizing your work. I think that stuff is a little bit more straightforward. And there are just some naming conventions and those kinds of things. Um, as after the portfolio part, it's F portfolio cover sheet, and it's got some basic information in there for information we need on your pieces. So a lot of that's straightforward, but there is a bullet point in there where it says, provide a very brief description of your process for creating this work. Um, that could be a nice place if you are trying to make a note of something of like you want to point out how it was created. Perhaps you did something special in the process, or perhaps there was an idea or a concept behind it. I think that's a place that's fair game for just revealing some of those things that to the adjudicators, what you want us to kind of know about the piece. It's definitely not a place for an essay, but if there's a note like, hey, I did this to get this, that could also be a nice little kind of process note in there as well. So there's that opportunity to kind of highlight something that you don't want an adjudicator to miss. Um, next section is G, images of sketchbook pages and or 3D experiments. Um, so, you know, this could be a way that you're sharing some of your thinking behind your work. Sometimes the journey that we see in the sketchbook or the ideas sometimes are cooler or more exciting or just really revealing, um, sometimes more than the art piece, or sometimes they just highlight something about the art piece that's really exciting to see how it got there. So, whatever you can share, it says submit 5 photos. What you do have that you could share as far as sketches or process work, um, that's a cool place just to share some things, to share some insight to the adjudicators, that behind your work. Or um, maybe it's a daily or routine artistic habit that you do or something like that. But that's an opportunity for us to see the behind the scenes stuff and the ideas and the thinking a little bit. Um,
All right.
anything, anything else you want me to touch on, Jason?
I mean, that is really, we are talking to, I would call him the professional, the guru, our person who knows this work inside and out. Everything in this particular applicant guide is what they are looking for. And so we'll always say, please read the applicant guide. You'd be so surprised on how many students will come back and say, how many photos do I need to upload for sketchbooks? 5.
Mhm.
So please, in nausea, almost, please read the applicant guide. It is your best bet on making sure that you're hitting all the requirements for the preliminary round. For the next round, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make one more note. And
Absolutely.
and if it's something like process and you're feeling like, oh, I feel a little short on this, just do your best, just submit something, and at least you've met the requirements, and you've got it in, and you've got something in there, so I think you can feel good about that. So, you know, just a little note there. Yep. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. All right. So once you have submitted your preliminary round, your first round application, that's virtual, right? You've submitted it into the system, accepted system. We send it to our adjudicators. They'll get together, they'll start looking through your application, and then on February the 13th, we will announce our finalist list on our website. So you'll get a indication through the accepted portal, and then we'll also talk about it on our all of our social media outlets on, hey, final round finalists will be announced on Instagram, Facebook, and our website in and of itself. And so for final round, once you make it to final round, there will be pre-review questions. Applicants who advance to the final round will be forwarded to a new section in their application called Application Part 3. This new part of the application will include a short questionnaire. The questionnaire may cover a range of topics, including experiences in your art form, maybe your favorite artist, and or your college and career goals. Our adjudicators want to know, hey, you want to go into graphic design, where's your mind at currently on what's the next step towards higher education, right? Or what's the next step in your journey after high school? What do you want to do? They want to get to learn to know you even better outside of just the virtual component in the preliminary round. And then there will be what they call a virtual portfolio review in and of itself. And so the second round, this final round and portfolio review will be all virtual itself. So what will happen is that we will give you a time that will be either on March 13th or March 14th, and it will be you, probably about 5 or 6 other young artists in this group slot talking with our adjudicators one-on-one. The adjudicators will lead a brief conversation with each applicant about their portfolio, design exercises, and artistic motivations. This is an opportunity for you to verbally express the qualities of your visual work, as well as your personal artistic perspective. And so when you come in virtually, and it will probably be through Zoom, just like this, but more in a meeting and less in a webinar setting, right? And so it will be you and maybe a few others, and you will have technically 45 to 50 minutes along with everybody else. And the adjudicators will be asking you questions about your work and the prompts and everything else that kind of goes along with it. The duration of the review is limited. It says 10 minutes per applicant. So because we'll have multiple applicants in each slot. Um, but finalists will receive the time and date and a Zoom link in your accepted messaging system. So be on the lookout. If you make it past the preliminary round and get to the and become a finalist, all of your information will be in that accepted messaging system by the very beginning of March, end of February, probably the beginning of March. So, did I miss anything there, Hans, by chance? I think you're muted.
I don't think so.
All
I
right, I
think you
think we're
got it.
good.
Yep.
All right, I think we're good there. Once you have gone through the whole final review portfolio process on that March 13th or 14th, it's either a Friday or a Saturday for graphic design, um, then you're done. And then we all sit and wait while the adjudicators go back behind the scenes and they start putting together the GSA class for the summer. We will actually do that announcement, I believe, on April the 10th. And I will scroll down just a little bit to make sure that my dates are correct as well. Yes, it is. April the 10th, 2026, the announcement of the GSA 2026 class with those who have been accepted and then those who are also alternates as well. All right. And so just real quick, I'm going to scroll up. I'm probably making all of us a little dizzy, but there are some criteria. The work of each student will be given an objective review by the adjudicators as to how they fulfill each of the following requirements. So go ahead and take a look at all of this, right? I'm not going to read through all of it, but make sure that you have a well understanding of what they're looking for, all the things that they've asked you for within the preliminary round and the final round. Sometimes the adjudication process is all about how well do you follow the instructions of what's been given to you on the applicant guide. I've heard that many of times from adjudicators itself. So, and I believe, Hans, we actually have a question.
Okay, great.
It says, how many graphic design spots will be available this coming summer? That is a wonderful question. From what we know, it will be 16 spots will be available. We are accepting 16 spots for our first graphic design year. So 16. Excellent question. We are open for questions. There's another question. Is there? All right. We always will provide you with some tips and these tips are suggestions. They're not necessarily eligibility requirements to be admitted, but your portfolio does not need to be design oriented as you may not have had any design related experience. Hans has already said that. Incorporate recent work in your portfolio. Consider working consider including work completed outside of school or school projects, right? Pay close attention to the adjudication criteria. While GSA students are accepted based on their holistic identity as a young artist, the criteria are the foundations of how your portfolio is being scored. Overall, when it's all said and done and the smoke clears, we want to absolutely let every single young artist know you are an artist, regardless of whether you get accepted into GSA 2026 or not. If you are a sophomore and you are looking into graphic design and for some reason you don't get accepted into 2026, that's okay. Apply for 2027. Because what that does is that in our system and accepted, we will tag your name and that will let our adjudicators know the next year that hey, we have somebody who was a finalist for 2026. They were an alternate, but we didn't get them into the 2026 class. They will actually go and take a look at your work. They'll remember your work. I guarantee you, they'll remember your work and compare how much progress you've made from 2026 to 2027. So there's always a best practice. And if you don't get in 2026, always apply for 2027. So trying to think of what else. This is our timeline. Remember that GSA application is due January the 18th. Please do not wait until January 17th to start the application. It is very difficult and very disheartening for us to see almost 200 applications not completed in our system, right? We want to have every single person have enough time to finish the application in and of itself. Last year here in Kentucky, we had a major snow and ice storm throughout at least central and western Kentucky. I'm sure it hit eastern Kentucky, excuse me, as well, where everybody was out of school for like a week and some change, almost 2 weeks. We always encourage all of our students, if you can, open up the application now, start filling out everything that you can. You can save it and come back to it. But if you can, the best practice would be submit all of your material before you leave for winter break. Because I promise you, between that January 1st and that January the 18th, it goes by quick and it's going to be tough to get all of that stuff in. So start now, work on it now, and get it submitted. So when you come back after the new year, you can just breathe and go from there, right? We've received so many messages, emails, and phone calls the day of January the 18th. It's a Sunday, so there's not going to be anybody in the office. Our last day in the office for that week is that Friday before. So what is that, 16th? So if you're calling on that Saturday or Sunday, we're not going to be able to help you. We're taking a little time off. That's the weekend. So please make sure that you get your stuff in because we'll have hundreds of applicants uploading their stuff to the system and things get a little slow naturally. So start your application early. Start your application early. Start your application early. We don't want you to be in that 200 number. All right. And now at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screens and stuff and give us just a quick moment to see, are there any questions in the chat or in the Q&A component? This is an opportunity for you to literally ask questions of our artistic consultant for graphic design. And so this is the kind of the pregnant pause, Hans, where we wait for questions to come up. And if there's no questions, then there's no questions. And while we're kind of waiting for questions, Hans, what is the most exciting component of this so far, about this whole graphic design art form um, that's about to happen?
I'm just so excited about the possibilities and what can happen this summer. So uh, graphic design is new. Um, this is my first connection with GSA, and as we're putting this program together, and I'm talking to my colleagues about it, I just think there could be so many cool things um, that can go on this summer, from field trips and connecting with professionals and design firms. We have lots of connections that we would share with the person teaching the course. Um, it's just so exciting. I mean, I didn't have a chance to do this when I was in high school. So to get to do this before you even get to college is amazing. So I'm just excited about the potential and what's going to come together this summer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have two questions in the chat. So, and Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong. It says, would a lesson where the students did 85% of the work be like AI submission? So my assumption is that, is it okay to submit something that is 85% AI submission? If you could kind of give us a little bit more. Okay, that's correct. So that's
Uh, yeah. I mean, you could. Um, we're in kind of a strange spot with AI just in general. I think we're all uh just critically looking at AI, and I think if you created something with I would put a few notes in the description to maybe note some things about the process that went into it, or the image or the concept to maybe highlight those things to the juror because otherwise it can be hard to understand what went into it, if that makes sense. Is that helpful to understand? So, yeah, it could be 85% done, but I think making some notes on your process or the thinking, or maybe even how you engineered the prompts could be helpful.
Yeah, she provided a little bit more clarification. She said it was a lesson in a very specific art form. The artist giving the lesson said my daughter did about 85% of the work.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, got it. So your daughter did 85% of the work. Um, yeah, I mean, I would, if it is one of the strongest portfolio pieces, then I would say include it. I would say documenting it the best you can. So, helping us to understand what that 85% of the work was would be helpful to the adjudicators to really be able to assess it as fairly as possible. So that would be my tip for that artwork. But, I would make sure that it is one of the strongest artworks. Um, because if you have a few drawings or paintings or whatever that might be stronger, maybe you want to consider those in your portfolio because you want that to be your strongest works. Yeah.
absolutely. We have another question that says they would like to know what kind of classes will be offered this summer. Well, I can kind of give you a little bit on that because we are still in the process of, even though we have an artistic consultant and we also have an adjudicator, we are still in the process of hiring faculty for the summer in and of itself. And so once we have the faculty hired in February, they'll start building the curriculum of what this looks like almost based upon some of the aspects of the applicant guide in and of itself. And so we can't give you like a rundown of exactly every single thing that's going to happen um, curriculum wise as of right now because we are still building the team to drive home towards the summer. But I can absolutely say that actually I don't have to say. Hans, what would you suggest and think that would happen over the summer
Yeah.
within that 21-day period?
Yeah, and I agree with Jason in that, we don't have the curriculum put together yet, but some things that are typical are that I mean, graphic design is an industry-oriented uh, art form, I guess you could say. Um, there is a very strong industry, especially in the greater Cincinnati area where Northern Kentucky is. So that's why I said, hey, we would be very interested in making some connections, field trips, getting to visit a design firm, that kind of thing. I would think that would be very doable to get to see what a really cool design firm looks like, what it's like to be in that kind of environment. So I would hope we would be able to make that kind of connection. You'll be working on projects that help give you the fundamental skills to communicate. So part of it, I would feel pretty strongly that it would be, skills based, uh, how to visualize things, both analog and digitally on the computer. So growing those digital skills, being able to visualize and communicate there, as well as um, how you start to think about ideas and concepts, which are really important to design. So um, it's not just about the form, but it's about the idea and the concepts. Um, I would imagine there would be projects that would help maybe you practice in almost real life professional kinds of situations. So once you learn some skills, like how do you actually apply it? There could be like a branding exercise, or branding is a really big industry in this area. So, what does it sort of look like to go at least through the process of approaching a branding project or something like that? So
Yeah,
it would tend to be very real world sort of oriented exercises, or technical and thinking exercises to get you moving in that direction of professional kinds of applications. Um, so those are some things that come to mind in what a graphic design curriculum would be.
excellent. There was a kind of a follow-up question. Will there be any 3D or 2D classes or components built into the curriculum itself? Faculty can come in with multiple ideas um, between the beginning of the spring going into the summer, right? But because I am not a professional nor a graphic designer myself, I will pass that idea on to Hans to see what he has to say.
Yeah, I would think that it would be primarily 2D. Um, Perhaps a 3D application could be something like designing a package and then maybe putting together a prototype. But it definitely tends to lean more 2D, I think, at this level in a curriculum. So I would tend to think you're going to see more 2D than 3D. Um, when you say 3D, are you saying physical 3D or 3D modeling?
We'll see whether or not 3D
Oh,
modeling.
3D modeling. Uh, Probably not so much 3D modeling. Um, that's probably, yeah, I think that is more specific based. I wouldn't imagine there would be much 3D modeling in this curriculum.
Right. They said thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.
Are there any additional questions? I'm looking. We're waiting. While we're kind of waiting for a few more moments, please note that this particular webinar, you can always go back to it on our website. All of our past webinars, our GSA 101 webinars, and our art form specific webinars are all posted on the website. So go back to KentuckyGSA.org, go back where you signed up to register, and then you'll automatically see a link that says, "Hey, if you didn't make it, you can review the webinar that you might have missed." Or if you want to go back and kind of see us talk to you again in this particular format, a recording of this will be up on our website as well. All right. I don't see any additional questions. Hans, any final parting words before we leave?
I think you just emphasizing read the applicant guide is the best advice. Just, go through there, make sure you're hitting all of those line items, and I think that is the best way to prepare.
Excellent.
Yeah.
To you all, to our young artists on the webinar, to the parents, to the teachers. Thank you all for allowing us to share space with you virtually this evening. Please remember, read the applicant guide, go to KentuckyGSA.org, check us out, and stay vigilant. Get your applications in as soon as possible. Don't let it creep up on you going into January 10th, 11th, 12th, 5th. It can get a little stressful for anybody, right? But this particular how we're modeling our applicant applications is how you would technically do it for a program on the college level. We're asking for your um, we're doing interviews, we're asking for your pieces of your work, we're asking for essays. These is just kind of prepping you for the process. For once you kind of leave GSA and you're thinking about going into a graphic design field or major in college, this is what it's going to look like. So, thank you all for your time. And like you said, if you need us, please go to GSA info at KentuckyPerformingArts.org, and we'll be able to answer all kind of answers through our info app or info email and through the phone number itself. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you soon in the applicant pool. Thanks, everyone.